Welcome to the What Anyone Can Do podcast with Leo Batari and me, Randy Cantrell. This show picks up where our previous show, You're the Peer, left off, highlighting the simple truth that who you surround yourself with matters, and that if we enlist the support of others, give back to those who give to us, and pay it forward for the next generation, we can do anything. Author and keynote speaker Leo Batari and I talk with a diverse group of thought leaders who will share stories and insights that will help you succeed in business and in life. How? By doing the things anyone can do, but most of us never will. Season 2020, What Anyone Can Do, the podcast, representing Seton Hall, star of the show, Leo Batari. The website is leobatari.com, Leobottary. My name is Randy Cantrell, coming to you from Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas. It's getting a little warmer here. It's not sunny. Well, it doesn't look all that sunny there today.
It isn't sunny, but it's nice out,
Yeah.
So I thought, let's just sit outside here a little bit and change the scenery a little bit. Seton Hall, of course, I'm an alum, so that's why I have the Seton Hall hat today. We lost to Villanova the other night, missed a three-pointer right at the end that would have won the ball game. But, we got a Big East tournament coming up, and we got the NCAA. So that'll be – I'd rather hit that shot, later on. And, of course, I do go back and forth between Seton Hall, who I was an alum, and I taught there for 7 years, but now I teach for Rutgers. So I do have to – go back and forth with the Rutgers gear every once in a while as well. Love both places for their own reasons. But, it was kind of a tough call the other night. They were behind most of the game, though, and they totally came back in a way that, it's kind of just watching great teams kind of figure it out, and they're never out of it. And they're always just digging and always in it for each other and doing what they need to do. And, we thought today, not to, talk basketball so much, but last time, or it was whether it was the last show or one very recently, where we talked about psychological safety in teams. And I thought it may be interesting to kind of extend that conversation a little bit around what that can afford us to do. And one of the things that, I've actually kind of marveled at recently is what Alexander Keenan's been able to do with the Win Mastermind group. He basically just decided he wanted to get in this. He wanted to set up virtual mastermind groups for purpose-driven entrepreneurs who could learn from one another, help one another, connect with each other across different countries in Europe. He's gotten certainly some folks in the U.S., me included, involved in it. It gives me an opportunity to participate in a peer group, which obviously I desperately want to do, but I cannot really be a reliable participant in like a Vistage group or an EO group or something like that because of my travel and things. But to be able to get online, and be able to participate in a virtual session that I think is very efficiently facilitated, has been great. But what's been interesting to watch with Alexander, and what I love, it a little bit reminds me of that not typical, but that quote that's associated with between baby boomers and millennials. Like we were taught kind of good things come to those who wait, and millennials are good things come to those who act. And I think watching what Alexander has done with this company has been, I think, very much about that. He's acted. And just like, you and I, before we got started, we talked about the Marshmallow Challenge, which has been around for a while. And just to recap what that is, it's basically when you take teams of 4, let's say, and you give them 20, sticks of, uncooked spaghetti, if you will. I think it's like string, tape, and they get a marshmallow. And the idea is which team can build the tallest structure in like whatever time you give them, like 18 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever you give them. And so they'll go build the structure. The only rule is basically you have to have the marshmallow on top. So when they have tested over years now, groups of CEOs, business school students, kindergartners, right? So as you might imagine, you think about this, who is the group that on average builds the tallest structure? And it's the kindergartners. And it's hilarious to see why that is. And of course, especially in business school students, I think are among the worst. This is the pretty funny part because they're all about, you've got, let's call it 18 minutes. And so so everyone's got their calculator out, everyone's got, on their computer, and they're trying to devise this plan for what the structure is going to look like, and then they build it, only to put the marshmallow on top. The thing collapses, and now all of a sudden they got like 2 minutes to recover and figure out how they're going to build something else. And of course, time runs out, and it's pretty much all over. And for those who end up building something, I think on average it's about half the height of what the kindergartner is able to build. CEOs do a little better. The only group that beats the kindergartners, thank God, is architects and engineers. I'm just grateful for that for people who are actually in the biz, they know a little something about structure and how to create something that can stand on its own. But the reason the kids do so well is, first of all, no one's concerned. They don't get into a big fight about hierarchy and who's in charge and all this other kind of stuff. They don't feel like they got to devise a strategic plan, for the spaghetti and the marshmallow. They just start doing stuff. And as they're putting it together, it falls. They put it together, it falls. They put it together and like, okay, we built a structure that high. How do we add to it? Or how do we change it? Or how do we do something so that as the clock winds down, they know they've got a structure that works. They put the marshmallow on it. They're good. And there we go. It's kind of fascinating when you think about the reason why that doesn't happen in most companies, or why it doesn't happen, among groups of adults. And it's because there isn't any real psychological safety there. There isn't any feeling that I can just suggest something, or I can make a mistake, without making a mistake. We got to come up with the plan that everyone agrees on, and they're not worried about consensus building and all other nonsense. They're just doing it. And the reason I raised that particular point is that I think when you look at Alexander and what he's done with Win Mastermind Group, he's just doing it. He's just figuring it out as he goes. Something works, it works. They go with it. Something doesn't work, they change it. And they're constantly working on that and refining and adding people and getting input from people who are real users, as opposed to sitting around, in a committee of people, if you will, who convince themselves about all the viability of what they do and why, and the language and the narrative around it and the strategy and everything. When, Alexander really just did it, and there's something to be said for that. And it's pretty cool to watch.
Oh, I'm envious. I mean, I'm super envious. You and I were talking before we hit record. I began my career pretty much as a troubleshooter. I was kind of a fixer. And when you start out with that role early, and I was naturally probably wired for it. I don't know that the guy that gave me the opportunity knew that, but turns out it was a really natural skill set, to fix problems and move on and iterate and innovate, with something existing. But I learned really early, man, from 0 to 60, I'm horrible. I'm absolutely horrible. I'm not a sprinter at all. From 60 up, and I'm dynamite. I'm great. But
I think the problem,
I was thinking about.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was thinking about the psychological safety of it, and I think that plays into it even at an individual level, in that of caring too much how you look or how you appear. Right. And a guy like Alexander, I mean, he doesn't care. I'm sure there's something going on in his head,
but he's fearless, no doubt about it.
Yeah, I mean, he's just, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Right? Where I know that I don't have that. I'm working toward it, but I don't have that. And so for me, kind of leveraging the power of other people and this whole we concept and this cycle, I mean, there's big safety in that, and being around people like that, so that you can see it is safe. It's kind of like dad going into the water before the kid does, right? It's like, sure. Okay, I see that could be safe. I mean, even for a guy like me at this age, that's a pretty powerful thing.
Well, so one thing that really struck me about what you talked about with regard to the problem solver piece is I remember reading something. I think it was in Peter Senge's The Fifth Discipline book a while back, when we talked about my being part of that learning team, at Seton Hall. And they basically said, when you have to create something, you literally have nothing and have to turn it into something. When you're a problem solver, you have something and you're trying to make it go away. Right. So it's almost,
Right.
the argument was that it's a bit of a different mindset, a bit of different skill set, even to think about, what that looks like. But, it was great to have you participate the other day in a Win Mastermind group, just to kind of check it out and see what the format looked like. And,
Yeah.
for our listeners who are familiar with circles, which we've had a podcast on circles, and it'd be fun to do one of those sometime again, where we just literally have a whole group where we do, a meeting, and do a little panel discussion sometime with it. But using the Circles platform, versus what we're using here with Zoom, with just the two of us, when you get 7 or 8 people on that, and it's well facilitated, and you've got the right agenda and everything. I don't know. So I guess, first of all, what was your expectation going into the session in terms of what it was going to look like and how it was going to run, or what value you were going to get from it? And then what was the reality of it?
Well, because we've got such familiarity, with Dan and Circles, and it's Circles with the dot between the ES. It's an ES domain. We'll put links in the show notes.
So I know you know the platform. I meant the whole Win Mastermind experience part of it.
Yeah, and the platform played a role in the
Sure.
facilitation, because the way Circles works, on the right-hand side, you've got the agenda, and, Alex is starting his clock, and so it was a really tight hour. I went in wondering, okay, an hour's going to go by in a hurry, and it did. I was skeptical as to what could be done probably in an hour, to be candid. And I think you were too the first go around, because you and I remember us talking offline about it. But once I saw it, I got it.
It's efficient. It's a different value proposition than, it's not a Vistage Group meeting. It's not a, EO. It's not a YPO forum. It's very different in that regard. However, the value of it is not small, and the value of it can, and in many respects, it can be a gateway for people that want to also, these things don't have to be this or that. This can be this and that. And so I think once you get introduced to the idea of these groups and how they work, and you can do it in a way that's efficient, as I mentioned, for me, I'm just grateful that I've got this for right now, when my travel schedule doesn't allow for, the other. But
that's been our
someday, hopefully doing both,
Yeah, but that's been our intrigue. Our intrigue has been, what is this going to look like, not only now, but in the future? I mean, everything around us is changing. I remember people thinking autonomous cars. Wait a minute. Well, now I don't know very many people that are cynical or skeptical about autonomous cars anymore, or electric for that matter. And a decade ago, everybody was skeptical about it. 5 years ago, a lot of people were skeptical about it. And the same kind of innovation, I think, is happening in this space, especially, the peer advisory space, these groups. What is that going to look like? I think he's proving how, however it looked in the past is not necessarily how it's going to look. And the great thing for you and I, as kind of evangelists for the power of people surrounding themselves with other people that can help them, is I think there's going to end up being something for anybody and everybody. I realize, okay, Vistage isn't for everybody. YPO is not for everybody. EO is not for everybody. It's for a lot of people, but it's a tight hour. It's a lot accomplished in that hour. Leveraging, and I knew this from you, I knew leveraging the networking part of it but not overly so. Not, I
No,
mean, it's not a I'll rub your back, you rub mine kind of a
no.
thing, but it still is kind of a little bit of an emphasis that felt good to me personally of, do you have a resource? Do you know do you know somebody that can help do that? And that's a real world practical benefit, that I saw. And I realize not everybody's doing that. Uh, but I thought that was, he clearly is doing that. It works. It clearly works.
Yeah, I've already had some introductions made and some things where we've been helping one another do some things that I think has been really beneficial so far. I mean, just after a couple of meetings, and I even had, as you know, yesterday. Usually, what happens in the way they run the meetings basically is, you may or may not have the exact same people in every single group, right? Particularly at this stage of the game, but you get people who've been vetted, they've been onboarded, they participate, in they know what it means to participate in the process and how to go about doing it, and have shared values around it. But so everyone does a quick 1 minute introduction, and then they have what he refers to as kind of the spotlight. And you get 10 minutes to frame, okay, here's what I'm doing, here's what I'm working on, and here's my ask of the group. And that ask could be anything, you know. And I know my ask was talking about, hey, I've got, chapters I'm writing right now, and I would love to get, input from, people who, right? I mean, they're in different industries, they're
Different
different
countries.
ages, they're different countries. I mean, and just to get a feel for some of these concepts and making sure that they are explained and illustrated in a way that resonates, with people. I mean, it's easy to be in your own head with this kind of stuff, and you get it all down, and I can look at it and fall in love with it, but it doesn't matter if when people look at it, they go, yeah, I don't get how you got from here to here. Like, you need to fill that in, or you need to do, and that is hugely helpful. So, again, whenever we can get that kind of, input, and then, I mean, really everyone in the group, said, yeah, I'll take a chapter and read it. I'll do something. And, um, when you have, and when you come prepared with a specific ask, and I think that's really key. You don't show up to a meeting like that and get into the spotlight without being pretty prepared with, here's what I want to say, here's my ask, here are the questions that I'm likely to get that I want to be prepared to answer, to get clarification on maybe what some of the needs I have are. But I think when you do that, people can, first of all, their willingness, I mean, they're on that call because they want to gain something for themselves, but they really want to serve others. They really want to be helpful. And it's it's a great thing. And I say that, of course, of all, obviously I go to a ton of Vistage group meetings and Tech Canada meetings, mostly, but you go into every one of those sessions, and everyone is so unbelievably generous with one another. And when you think about all the nonsense going around in the world today, in our politics and everything else, it's kind of nice when you can actually walk into a room or be in a virtual meeting and actually see people really being incredibly decent to one another.
Right.
It's nice.
Right. Yeah, there is that. Well, and the other thing that struck me was not just in the meeting, but after the fact stuff. And I think people that haven't experienced any of these kinds of, I don't care I don't care who's doing it or who's facilitating it. I mean, whether it's Vistage, YPO, or any of the others, or Win Mastermind, I don't think by and large the general public really understands the power even after the meeting. That the power is not only in the meeting and your time together, but that psychological safety, to kind of come back full circle to our point, transcends just your time together, whether that's virtual or just in a face-to-face room.
Yeah, and I think getting back to where we started with this conversation too, I think what these groups do is give you the courage to act and try things and go through that iterative process in a way where you might be otherwise hesitant. And I think it's a good reminder for us that it's not about figuring out and getting it perfect and getting the right answer. It's about really trial and error. I mean, it just
Yeah.
really is, and, when you think about, the old line, no plan survives contact with the enemy. And they refer to that in terms of whether it's, I don't care if it's a business plan or a student plan or whatever it is. Once you put it in front of folks, in all likelihood, you're going to have to make adjustments and changes. You just don't want to be in a situation where, like in the marshmallow challenge, you've got 1 minute left and you put the marshmallow on top, the thing crashes, and you've got no chance of being able to, put it back together. And whether that's time, money, whatever that may happen to be, that is that limiting factor for you, you find that if we can just get started and keep trying things and doing little things over time, and I think these group experiences remind us that, first of all, how important it is, and how much more likely it is to work. And what we can learn from it if we're willing to be vulnerable and just wrong and just make a whole ton of mistakes before we get it right.
Well, when we've got some people that were originally from Spain, from India, you're in Southern California, I'm here in Dallas, Fort Worth. Alexander, of course, is in Amsterdam. And so you've got these cultures. Other than you, I'd never met any of these people. They'd never met me. We're
I
all,
had met like half of them, I think. Yeah.
we're all brand new to each other. And yet right out of the gate, you hit the ground running. You spend this hour together, and there's enough psychological safety that you all know why you're there. You're all there to derive some benefit for yourself, but you're also there to provide benefit to other people. So there's the tie that binds. So the psychological safety can happen really quickly. And I'm always fascinated by how quickly we can get to a place of safety. And I think a lot of people really underestimate that. I think a lot of people, unless they see it or experience it, I don't know that they would really believe it. Especially, and I'm an introvert. So I'm way more comfortable listening to somebody else's problems and asking questions and trying to understand. And if you, and you did notice, you do pay attention. And I'm not saying other people don't, but I just asked questions. I didn't offer a whole bunch. I was trying to better understand. And my hope is that asking the questions helps people. But the quickness with which we can get to the psychological safety is pretty fascinating to me. And I wish more people really understood that. And then it transcends to not the advice necessarily, but whatever the person decides to do, whatever they themselves choose to do. If I chose to throw something out there to a group like that, then I would know, okay, I got 5 people. And it's amazing to me, and I'm just speaking for myself, that in my head, those 5 people, knowing that there are 5 people who at least have my back in the sense that, okay, I can come to the next meeting. I will have colossally failed, perhaps, but it's okay,
Oh, yeah.
is far more safe for me than to think of the world out there that could be ridiculing me, making fun of me, and I could be embarrassing myself. But I know I'm not going to embarrass myself in front of these 5 or however many it is.
Well, there's a recognition too that, when you try and fail, at least you're in the game, and and people respect that, and it's not like we all haven't made mistakes or we all haven't,
Right.
I think the other real big factor that appeals to the psychological safety as well, though, is a big, Alexander stressed it at the top of the meeting and throughout the meeting, where when we are sharing with one another, we are sharing our experiences. We are not offering advice. Now, clearly there are times where people might flat out ask, tell me what to do. And I think that's fair, and if people are looking for those answers from time to time. See, the sun is coming out here in California, as it should. But in other cases, it takes the pressure off the listener and the person who is, quote, sharing some of their ideas, because sharing your experiences and offering advice is completely different. And just sharing, hey, here was my experience with this, and here's what I did, and here's how it came out, is much easier to say, here's what I think you should be doing. And now all of a sudden I feel like I own part of that. And then they try it and it's like, oh, you know, I mean, I think when people share experiences and people take in what resonates with them and what they believe fits who they are and fits their circumstances in ways that it's going to be very difficult to really understand, you know, fully. I don't, by the way, and that's true whether it's a full day meeting or you got an hour. But I think when people can kind of take that in, you know, do something that connects with them and they can own that solution so that they take that forward, as opposed to a consultant or someone telling you what to do or shooting you in some way. That's helpful. And in large part, people are going to implement something more successfully if they had a hand in creating it, you know, and coming up with it and really having ownership of it. So I think that adds immensely to the psychological safety of that environment, and why you can get on the phone with, if you will, the phone, or on the Circles platform, I should say, with 6 to 8 people from different countries, many of whom you've never met, but you know you're all there for a given reason, and that everyone shares the common purpose, values, and behaviors. It's powerful, and it's to your point, it's like amazing how immediately comfortable you feel in that setting.
Well, and I would venture to guess that the majority of people listening to us or watching the video of this podcast have not experienced that. I mean, have not experienced that kind of, I'll be brave and bold and say, I dare say the majority of people professionally, when it comes to business, when it comes to running an organization, operating, have no clue about what that even feels like. Because if you go to your buddies are notorious for telling us what we ought to do, right? I mean, every business guy I know who's got business buddies, the buddies they can solve all of our problems, you know, and happily tell us what we ought to do, you know. But to get that kind of, I don't know what the right word for it is, you know, it's filtered on one hand, and then it's filtered to not should you, but it's unfiltered in the sense of it's just so readily there and available. I'm still fascinated. I was fascinated some 4 years ago or so when we first connected. And I remember asking you, one of the first things I asked you is, why is this so rare? Why do so few people in the business world take advantage of this? Now that I understand, and now that I've seen the power of it, why is this so stinking rare? And I remember asking you that question nearly every time that we talked, you know, because I don't know, I never could get my head wrapped around some satisfactory answer. I think now, these years later, I've got some idea, and I think this is it. I mean, I think it's just people fear. I think it's fear. I just think it's pure and simple fear. And I don't think people really understand the psychological safety that can happen in these kinds of groups.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I completely agree. And, you know, we are putting our best face forward everywhere we go. Somebody walks up the street, how's it going? Great. You ever hear someone answer, yeah, not so great today? And then all of a sudden it's like, okay.
Right. And if you do hear that, you don't want to be that person.
You don't want to hear it anyway. Yeah.
No. And you don't want to be that, you don't want to be that person doing that kind of complaining. So I get it. And yet in our head, we're not our highlight reel in our head, but that's what we're comparing everything to, because everything's an Instagram.
Everybody's awesome online. Everyone's they're LinkedIn, they got this, they got that. Life couldn't be sunnier for everyone else in the whole world.
That's right.
But us, you know. So
that's right.
But anyway, I think our title for our show today will be on trial and error. I think it's kind of a good theme, and I think something for us to kind of remember is, if there's any message coming out of this one show today, is just do stuff. Don't be afraid to try, fail, try it again. You know, do the old Thomas Edison thing, right? 10,000 times before we got it, you know? So hopefully we'll get it quicker than that, but you know.
Yeah. And you're in really good company, you know, because all the rest of us are out here, you know, sweating the same stuff and having the same fears. But you want to learn more about Leo and the work that he's doing, Peernovation.co will take you to the exact same website as LeoBottary. That's leobottary.com. Working on the new book. Have more to say about that in future episodes. Lord willing, that comes out sometime spring, late spring, summer.
Yeah, I'd say spring, early summer. Book should be completed by the end of the month. As we know, we've got Jeffrey Hazlett, who's going to write the foreword. Thomas Anglero is working on Jeffrey Hazlett. For those of you, listeners who probably do know, since our podcast also runs on C-Suite. But C-Suite Network is Jeffrey Hazlett, the CEO. Could not be, I think, more generous. I think he's taken his whole career right now and just getting people to work together and connect and collaborate in a way that I think is extremely powerful.
And if
Thomas
you want to be studying somebody that's just doing stuff, Jeffrey's.
Yeah.
Totally. There's a case study.
That is exactly right. Oh, he's totally, and it's awesome, right? He's just doing it.
Yeah,
and
it is.
Thomas Anglero, he's the basically the director of innovation for IBM Nordic. He's, he talks a lot more about people than he does technology. And he's a fascinating guy, and look forward to what he's going to, contribute to the afterword of the book. So, just, really excited about those guys and their involvement. And so we'll get a lot of this stuff done. I'm heading to Calgary into Montreal next week. I'm doing visiting with a couple of Tech Canada groups and delivering a workshop to them there. And then back the following week, I'm actually speaking for Rex Roundtables here at Petco Park, doing a keynote for them, and then off to Denver. So with that, we're just it's been fun. I've been home for a while, which has been great because I've gotten a lot of writing done, but it'll be fun to get back out on the road too. So I'm excited about that. And,
good.
So there we go.
Just do stuff. So go out and do stuff. Don't be afraid.
All right. Everyone have a great week.
To learn more about our show and what we do, to submit questions to us, and to subscribe to What Anyone Can Do podcast, please visit our website, whatanyoneCanDo.com. What Anyone Can Do podcast is hosted by Leo Bottary and me, Randy Cantrell. Music provided by Kevin MacLeod is Vibe Ace, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0 license. Thanks for watching or listening. We hope you'll share the podcast.